Initiation by Elisabeth Haich. Chapter 28, The Lions. The next day is a great festival. As usual, Manu dresses me and puts on my gilt sandals, and then I go over to my reception room where the ladies of the court and Ruha, the chancellor, are waiting with two jewel bearers. Very ceremoniously, Ruka steps over to the jewel bearers and opens the coffer. Then the senior lady of the court, my former chief governess, takes out the magnificent golden collar and comes over to me with much pomp and ceremony, places the golden collar on my shoulders. Then, just as ceremoniously, she fastens the head ornament with the golden serpent and finally my bracelets and anklets. I stand like a statue, motionless and dignified. Although I behave myself with all befitting decorum, I'd really like to give Ruka's beard a healthy yank because he's looking at me in such a saucy, impertinent way again. Ruka isn't really bad, and he too has some of the blood of the sons of God in his veins. He's very intelligent and crafty. Although he can see into people's hearts and minds, he doesn't exploit this ability to an excessive extent. When he bows before me, it's not the bowing of a chancellor before his queen. On the contrary, he is bowing as a man before my feminine beauty and looking at me with a covetous eye. Impudent fellow! He knows all the while I can read his thoughts and his feelings. But then I think of Ptahhotep's words. In every living creature there is the striving towards divine unity. The male seeks the female, and the female seeks the male. That is the attraction between the two forms of manifestation of creative forces. In this light, I can understand Ruhan too. This power is working within him, and it's not his fault that he finds me pleasing. That's the reason for his impertinence. If it weren't for this force working within him, he wouldn't bother about me at all. And in my secret heart of hearts, I'm really not angry that he admires my beauty. After the dressing ceremonies, the ladies of the court and Ruha accompany me to the pharaoh. How beautiful, how very beautiful my father is in his festive robe, just like a god incarnate. Then we all leave the palace, going out to the waiting chariots. Some building or other is going to be dedicated today in an inaugural ceremony. Father and I step into the golden chariot, the chariot with the lions, and Father takes the reins from the attendants' hands. When I was still quite a little girl, Father was always taking me for rides in his chariot. I had to stand behind him, and he explained to me how to keep my balance by elastic body movements during the joggling, bumpy ride. I had to learn to keep my entire body quite relaxed in order to be able to instantly follow the movement of the chariot. When the floor beneath me was rocking to and fro, bouncing up and down, I had to be able to stand on my toes, keeping my feet and knees and the rest of my body flexible and quickly able to make the necessary counter moves. These chariot rides were always very funny, and at first we had plenty of occasions to laugh at my awkwardness. At the start, Father let the lions walk slowly, gradually quickening their pace to a trot, but the moment they began to run, the chariot threw me back and forth, and I was naturally afraid. Instead of keeping myself relaxed, I grabbed frantically at Father's hands, robe, and belt. Father laughed heartily, and with unending patience, he showed me again and again how to stand upright. Finally, I learned how to make the right corrective movements and was able to stand upright without hanging on to Father or the edge of the chariot. It was quite wonderful to be able to stand as securely and as apparently motionless as Father while the chariot raced over the ground. Often our rides were quite long. It was a thrilling feeling to be speeding along behind the galloping lions. The lions also enjoyed being able to get in a good run And not only we, Father and I, but the lions too would laugh with joy. Through these chariot rides, my body became muscular, powerful, and as resilient as if I'd been practicing wrestling every day. Every single muscle was used, forced to coordinate and react instantly with every movement of the chariot. It was a constant dance, though invisible as it was the floor underneath, not we ourselves that were really dancing on and on. When I was 15, Father taught me how to drive the lions. What a wonderful feeling it was to have these magnificent, gigantic animals in my power. They responded to the slightest impulse of my will, so supremely sensitive that they immediately did everything I wanted them to, without my having to move the reins. But Father never let me drive them alone, not even my favorite lion, a real personal pet, to the point of being jealous, because the lions were always highly independent, and only initiates could control them. I hope when I'm initiated I'll be able to drive the lions alone. Now, en route to the public festival, Father drives the lions with all due dignity, and I stand beside him as his wife. I am proud of Father. He is still very young, strong, magnificently beautiful. His body and his handsome face radiate tremendous power and concentration, especially now when he's driving the lions. Standing and balancing on his toes, his body absorbs every movement of the chariot, and he seems to stand motionless, as securely as if he were a sun god himself. We reach our destiny, and the boring ceremonies begin. I don't like these public festivals. They're always the same. Huge crowds, marching soldiers, people of rank. And for a time that seemed interminable. I have to sit still, practically motionless, watching the ceremonies until everything is over. And then I have to exchange friendly greetings with the people of rank while reading the many stupid and treacherous thoughts behind all the humility and flattery that they wear on their faces. How lucky that among all the many hypocrites in the court, who seek only the satisfaction of their vanity and desire for power, there are a few truly upright and loyal co-workers for Father and Ptahhotep. There's an officer, for example, whose radiance is so bright it seems almost golden. Who is he? I asked my father in a whisper. His name is Thista, Father whispers back. He was recently made an officer, but he has such splendid qualities, as you can see from his radiance, that I want to make him a commander. The ceremonies are always the same, the only difference being that we sometimes have to sit on the palace terrace, sometimes on a great dais, and at other times on the temple terrace. Sometimes the ceremonies are for the dedication of a new building, sometimes to celebrate an expedition returning from barter trade with neighboring countries and bringing back the wares obtained abroad. Then at other times we take part in a harvest festival or various temple festivals. And these I don't like for the simple reason that the great crowds haven't the slightest idea about the meaning of the ceremony. Instead of worshiping God in various forms in which he manifests himself, as represented in symbolic pictures, the ignorant masses worship the symbols themselves. But in time, even the most boring ceremony is ended, and at last we can go home and be ourselves again. No, I wouldn't like to be the pharaoh. The affairs of the country don't interest me at all. Legally, I should be the successor to the throne, but Father never talks about this and pays very little attention to preparing me for the tasks of a pharaoh. I know that Ptahhotep and Father are able to raise themselves up above the plane of time. They can see and experience the past and the future as present. I too am beginning to develop this ability, and often I can see parts of the future. But whenever I'd like to see my own future, only a dense mist appears before my eyes, hiding everything. But Father knows my future, and since he's not yet treating me as a co-regent, I imagine I may never become a pharaoh. I have already had this presentiment on my own. It doesn't worry me in any way, as I'd rather be a priestess in the temple. But curiously enough, I don't see any pictures of the future in which I am shown as a priestess in the temple either. I only see mist. After such celebrations, I'm always happy when I can get back to the temple the next day. I always feel comfortable in the pure spiritual atmosphere of the temple.